the new marketing playbook. Things have changed. The old marketing playbook, the old way we used to do things, are out the window to somewhat. There's still a lot of the stuff we're going to cover that is still, in a way, getting back to basics. But I think it's very important that we look at how things have shifted and how we need to probably shift too. As Aaron mentioned there before, I work for a company called Sorted Stone, so we're across the globe, which is interesting because we're kind of killing the feeling all the time in all the conversations I have about what's happening concurrently in the US and also out of our Dublin office in EMEA. And it's interesting to kind of share those kind of insights with each other across our global team. So I think one of the things that we really need to be thinking about here is changing our mindset. I wanted to start with quickly sharing a story for those soccer fans or football fans, if you prefer that word, that are on the call today. But back in 2005, this was the Liverpool Football Club for the Champions League final. They were hoping to win their 5th European Cup. If you remember, if you were a fan of these guys, or certainly following the Football League at the time, AC Milan was the company or the football team they were after, and they were favourites to win this particular cup. And in all sense and purposes, by halftime, they were looking like they were going to. The Liverpool football team was down 3-0 and looking like they weren't going to take away the trophy. But what actually happened at halftime was a shift in mindset. And it's been put down to a shift in mindset from a playing not to lose mindset to a playing to win mindset. And that's why I wanted to share this story with you, because they came back after halftime, and by the end of the final, full time, they were even scores with AC Milan. So it went into a penalty shootout, inevitably winning the penalty shootout 3-2. So they lifted the trophy, won the trophy from originally being 3-0 down in this what's been known as one of the most remarkable games of football in our history. But it just shows you, and I think this is where we need to be thinking about, is our mind shift from a playing not to lose, which is what we've all been kind of suffering a little bit with COVID and all the uncertainties around the world, and playing to win mentality. And to play to win, like the football team that we just shared the story of, we have to change our game plan. And we need a flexible game plan that changes as well, because, there's no point us having a fixed kind of game plan for today and then finding out that, in a month's time, it's obsolete because the world has shifted again. One of the things that we actually did off the back of COVID, as soon as it came in, was created this site, if you like, a free set of resources for our clients, and in fact, just to help the community. If you want to get some free resources, then please feel free to be my guest and go to beyondcovid19.com.au. And again, mindset shift. We didn't go COVID or coping with COVID or crisis or anything. The focus, and we created this back in February, March, when things were starting to go down that way, with the URL Beyond COVID, because we knew that eventually it was going to end, or it will end, and we'll get past it. But also before COVID, there was a lot of change that was going on. We were already going through considerable shifting, if you like. We were going by what was considered 90% offline to 100% online. Our outside selling was becoming inside selling. The white men in the 42 long jackets were becoming a diverse team, even more so in COVID, as we move into the virtual world with pajama bottoms, and mostly offline marketing becoming online, full serve customers, enabling customers now to self-serve. And I suppose that all of these things change this mind shift about how we need to go to market with our strategies, and also how we actually talk to our customers today. So in actual fact, it's kind of moved us to what I'm calling the 3 Ps. So we're going to cover these 3 Ps today, which I believe is our new game plan. The first P is around persona. It's really understanding, and I know some of this will be taking you back to basics, but it's often overlooked. Our persona has changed. Our persona now has moved from this old model of expecting, full service, open 9 to 5 and a buy first kind of mentality, to this new model, which has been escalated as we've all been driven more online than before, to a self-service, open 24/7 and a try first mentality. So we need to shift how we service our clients as well, and our prospects, and make sure that we are open for business when our clients want us to be, rather than working in the old model. So firstly, it starts with a buyer persona. And again, this is something that it could be basic 101 marketing, but nothing has changed in the sense of, understanding who your customer is first and foremost. But what has changed is a lot of what they've gone through. So everything we're going through in terms of the shift in COVID and the shift in uncertainty around the world, our buyers are also the same as us, human beings like everybody else. So how well do we really know? How well have we really connected with our personas? I did an interview recently with one of the group leaders for Facebook, and they were saying that they actually got their whole team together and really focused on how they were going to humanly communicate with their customers, how they were going to be more humane, more connected with their customers. And that sort of helped them. And a lot of us have realized that as a brand and a business, we need to be more transparent. We need to be more human with how we do things. So first and foremost, spend some time understanding, who are your personas? Have they shifted? Is the people that you're working for or aiming to target different now as we get out of post-COVID than they were before COVID? Has it opened up new opportunities, which it has for a lot of businesses? Have you now got new personas that you never had before COVID shifted everybody around? So be thinking about who is our persona, but then deep diving into who they are and why they would work with you. For us, we know our marketing manager, Mary. We know her so well because she loves inbound marketing, which is something that we strive to do. We provide her the easy tools that she needs to make her life easier. And we also create these wonderful reports for her to make her job and her look better so she can share them with the powers that be within her organization. But then on top of that, we need to be using technology. We need to be saying, well, okay, once we know who our persona is, how do we know how active a buyer is? And we can do that so well by understanding the digital footprint that our buyers leave behind. So once we know who they are, we can segment our database so we can personalize the experience with them. So when they come onto our website, we know if they're second time, third time visitors, who they are, and subtly change the experience for them to suit their persona rather than talking to an audience of many. We're trying to go to that one-on-one conversation, which is becoming so much more important. We also use a model called lead scoring. So by understanding that they may only interact with our website maybe once, download a tool or a white paper or something, we need to now understand, well, how active they are if they don't download or interact any more than that. And the idea being that every page they go to, they get a certain score rating. And then, for example, a blog post might be 5 points. So they might go to the context page, or they might go to a pricing page, which gets more points. When they reach a certain score level, based on their activity, they qualify then to be an SQL, a qualified to speak to sales, or a sales qualified lead that we can push through. Without having any other interaction with us, they've shown their intent by the activity that they do online. So it's important that we track that. And it's also important that we understand, who it is we want to speak to from a sales perspective. This line has been blurred between marketing and sales now. They're no longer separate departments. We like to call it the smarketing team, sales and marketing working in unison as a revenue team together. So once we know, based on activity, based on their interest and their engagement, that they're interested and they're a good fit for us, then we want to contact them immediately. We want to know who these people are, push them through the sales, and let our sales team take over. If they're not interested in a good fit, or if they may be interested but not a good fit right now, then we need to nurture that prospect for when they turn into that top right of the quadrant. In doing this, we're obviously going to be moving away from the traditional funnel as such and moving into a more friction-driven or frictionless kind of flywheel, so that our marketing and our sales team, as I mentioned before, become one revenue department. But also then once they become a customer and our service team are looking after them, again, it's a seamless model. It just rotates around the customer. The customer is all about the brand experience that they're receiving. They're not about whether they're dealing with a marketing person or a salesperson. And this I found has become more apparent through COVID and after, because they want that personal connection with somebody that represents the brand, but also somebody that understands them. They're not going to repeat to you what they've already repeated to somebody else. There's nothing more frustrating than having to go through the motions again. So we need our CRM to make sure that it's manageable, it's up to date, and it's shared across our whole content team. And as we kind of build that out, as you can see, the traditional funnel and the traditional buyer journey of attract, convert, close, and delight kind of work around this frictionless flywheel, and our strangers through to customers, and then eventually becoming brand promoters and moving into the delight stage, which is that important brand ambassador stage, also help us to create energy and drive ourselves forward. The buyer journey is so important. We need to understand that people are not always ready to buy. They're going to go through these changes of an awareness where they're looking for an issue or looking for a solution, a consideration stage when they're kind of weighing up their options, and then the decision stage when they're one step away from buying, but they still need that sort of convincing to move them forward. So how we do that, though, is we need to realize that these people want different types of content at different stages in the buyer journey. At the awareness stage, we're trying to attract them with our content. So, we talked about in the previous speaker in the previous session about SEO and the importance of SEO. Content drives SEO. So the more you understand good content for blog posts, good content in podcasts, your kind of SEO strategy, the more you're attracting the right visitors, not people who are just strangers, but people who are your target audience. They're there for a reason. They're coming to your site because they're the right type of people. Once they arrive, then we need to be using landing pages and content offers to engage them, lead scoring, as I mentioned before, to just see where these people sit, to see how active they are, whether they're a passive buyer or an active buyer. The active buyers we want to create as a lead and then nurture them down into becoming a customer through more offers, more content forms, calls to action. So every bit of content they consume leads them to naturally the next thing that they would do in their own time frame. And then finally, that last part is once they are a customer, the journey really begins. And that's when we want to constantly work with the customers we already have. So much more so now in COVID, in our new marketing plan, is to work with the customers that are already still with us, because they're the ones that know us, trust us, have stayed with us. How can we continue to look after them, and then they become brand ambassadors to go and tell other people about our services and bring them back around again. The second P in our 3 Ps of this new game plan for post-COVID is positioning. And this is part of a positioning refresh. It's time. Everybody's been shaken up, as we're saying. It's a new playbook. It's a new era. I think Aaron's called it the new normal. There's a whole bunch of things we've often used, probably one too many times, the word pivot, where people have pivoted from this side and pivoted. Everyone must be worn out with all the pivoting that has been happening over the last 6 months. But positioning is important. We need to be understanding that we can't just pivot around without realizing the pivot point, which is our position. If we look at some of the big brands that continue to strive even through these pandemic kind of times, we have Uber, we have Airbnb that are even in a pandemic are going through an initial public offering right now, and then Google, which has obviously remained consistent throughout the whole process. But these are non-traditional businesses, and this is where we need to be thinking about how we've done business in the past might not be how we do business in the future. So, Uber doesn't own its vehicles and constantly evolving into Uber Eats and other kind of areas where they can use their customer base to actually bring out new products and new services. Airbnb, I think, is starting to look into the space of workplace because we're now working more remotely. So it's a similar model to the holiday market is also our work market, like WeWork and places like that. So we need to be thinking about how can we look at new opportunities while still remaining consistent to our brand. The brand remains consistent regardless of what happens in our marketing blueprint, whatever happens in our crazy world that we work in, as long as our brand remains true. And the brand, in essence, as you can see here, is what people are saying about you when you're not around. So that consistency in the brand makes it really, really useful and consistent with our customers and with our prospects. So people know who you are and what you stand for. Simon Sinek, the great Simon Sinek, who talks about, everything starts with why you do what you do. And believe you me, why has become such an important part in COVID because people want to know that you are, you're there for them. You are a trusted, you're a secure brand. So Simon talks about if you just sell what you do, you're just purely a vendor. But if you sell why you do it, then you're a brand. The essence of what sits behind you. How are you communicating your why strategy? The same way as Apple communicates its why strategy is very, very important. So Apple's why, Steve Jobs created this fantastic brand of Apple You think, in the times that we're in now, and he's certainly been through a lot of challenges. Got sacked from his own company. I think it was way back, and then returned to the company and turned it into one of the biggest sort of companies in the world. I think the third most valued company right now. But their Apple why that kind of sits within their organization and then is actually penetrated out in the communication that they deliver to others is that everything we do at Apple, we believe in challenging the status quo. We believe in thinking differently. And it just kind of says so much more than if they just did the what, which is at the bottom. We happen to make great computers, nice phones, a bunch of other things. But, the essence of what sits behind every product or every solution that they bring to market is that they're challenging the status quo. They're being a little bit different. They're thinking ahead, they're being innovative, and they believe in thinking differently. So they're bringing out stuff that you wouldn't normally think of. And as Apple followers, if you're an Apple brand follower like myself, you're following them because of that innovation, because of the cleverness. They've got a bit of not catching up, but stuff to kind of watch with the likes of Samsung bringing out more innovative products, and Apple iPhone, for example, sort of falling behind a bit. But if they stay true to that messaging, then eventually their products, as they say here, will continue to be simple to use, beautifully designed, and user friendly. So think about the exercise for you, like what is your brand actually saying and how are you communicating that? If you're still doing the bottom of the funnel, sell my product, tell me about why I should buy now, and missing the rhetoric about why you stand for what you do and what you're trying to change in the world, now is the time to do it. Because I think one thing that COVID has taught us is just that personality and trust behind our brands. The human side of our brands need to come out more than ever before. We also need to make sure that we have that brand consistency in our positioning. So wherever our brand voice is, we need to make sure that it's consistent, especially in this modern day and age where we're sometimes using other people to do different parts of our brand. We might be outsourcing overseas, for example, our website. We might be outsourcing to a PA in the Philippines to do some of our Facebook posting, a blog person writing our blogs for us. If everybody's not singing from the same song sheet, the brand is diluted, the brand is fragmented. So this is a little exercise that you can do internally with your team, where you can go through this with your team and say, right, now we're in the situation we're in. We're coming, let's look positively. We're coming out of COVID. Things are going to, at some point, get back to a new normal of such. What is our brand voice going to be now? Is it the same as what it was before, or have we changed? Is our volume now moving from a conversational way? Maybe we're going more loud. Maybe we're going to be a bit more dynamic and a bit loud about how we want to go to market. What's the energy that we need to do? Are we switched on? Are we relaxed and chilled? Or are we really effervescent and manic? What's our sociability scale here? Are we still in a circle, very one-to-one? Or are we now going more broad community and universal with our messaging? And what's our attitude? Are we very safe and conventional? Or are we adding this sporadic unexpectedness so that there's just a little touch of innovation in what we do, so it's not traditional or conventional? So think about your brand voice and how that might have changed, and then think about how that actually works within your brand itself. So the 6 elements that you can see of a brand include that brand promise. So what is the promise we're taking to market? What's our brand identity? Is our logo, our colors, our brand palette still relevant today? Or is this the opportunity for us to refresh our look, to go out into the new marketplace with something new and refreshing? What's our image? Are we seen as, cheap and cheerful, or are we strong and bold and expensive and rich? What's our strategy? How are we moving ourselves, more and more into this kind of area? What's our positioning? And then finally, what's our brand management? Like, how are we managing our brand so that we have consistency across the whole marketing and our whole playbook that we do? So the other thing we need to be wary of is, what is our competitors doing? So, in terms of our space right now, competitors, in terms of how customers and consumers see us, can be plotted out into this very simple competitor matrix. So based on a grid of high price, low price, high quality, low quality, where do we position, where do we think our competitors are seen in the marketplace? From our consumers, from our prospects. And then in the middle, we put, or around here, we plot where we sit. So if this is where all our competitors are, we say, well, this is where we sit right now. And then the last part to this is we say, well, is that where we want to play? If all our competitors are in one quadrant, is there an opportunity for us now to be a bit of a kind of a blue ocean strategy and move into something a little bit less busy, a whole new world, if you like? So we plot where we are now and we plot where we want to be in the future. And that helps our blueprint, our marketing playbook, take us to exactly where we need to be. If we want to move up our quality score so that clients and customers and prospects know who we are from a quality aspect, it tells us and frames our marketing to be able to do that. If we want to put our prices up in the meantime as well, how do we convey value? How do we add more value into what we're selling and how we're doing it, and bring that forward? So the last part is just bringing this all together into a playbook. So we kind of set the scene, the personas, and a few different things there. The playbook is now, how do we bring all this together? So what does this new playbook look together, and how are we reimagining how we're going to go to market? The first thing it starts with is your website. So, everything that you do, especially in the digital marketing space, but even in the offline, non-digital world, normally ends up with people hitting on your website. It's sometimes and a lot of time overlooked. More and more people now through COVID are spending a lot more time on the internet. Internet has increased, and you've heard that probably through this conference. But you can see how this is the new look of how websites need to start thinking about. The first thing you'll notice from this homepage for ResMed is that we actually have in the top sort of right area there a timestamp. So what we're trying to do here is to create personalization as soon as you arrive on the site. So we know what time it is. We then want to create a sense of engagement, a connection, if you like, between the visitor. We don't know who they are at this stage because they're not engaged with our site. But what we want to do is, because it's ResMed, because it's about sleep health, it's 6:50 p.m. When these people are coming on in this particular timestamp. So it's an evening, but what we're trying to tell them is it's, maybe you'd be thinking of a coffee. Why don't you have a decaf because it will help you sleep better tonight? So it's starting little quaint things that we can do to personalize it even before we know who the person is, because we know what timestamp they're coming to. And often we also know where they're coming from. So their original kind of originating IP address. But the next thing we want to do is get away from having the traditional navigation. So again, people are time poor. How do we make it easy for people to come to a website and decide, okay, so where do I go next? So we've created this thing called the solution finder. So straight away I come in, I can still use the nav. It's still there if I know what I'm looking for. But in this case, I need a solution for who? In this case, it can have a drop down of myself, my partner, my parents, whatever it might be. Because then when they select this, we can change the content slightly to suit. The next thing we want to ask them is they're looking for a solution for themselves, their partner, their friend, or say a family member. But now they're looking for, well, what is the type of solution that I want? So in this case, the options are, as you can see, treat my sleep apnea, improve my sleep, stop my snoring. Key things that we know from our SEO research people are searching for. Once they select something from here, it then takes them through and gives them at the very bottom here all the solutions. It uses this is built on a HubSpot CMS. It uses HubDB, which is a back-end database, which has all the content that's running on the website itself. And based on the selection in the solutions finder, it brings forward the 4 or 5 key areas that they need to go to, and then they can click and start getting through. The idea is to get them off of the homepage and get them straight into the area of interest that they want, get the engagement starting as soon as possible. This is working extremely well. The stats are really strong in terms of how people are using this instead of going and trying to click through a random navigation bar at the top. But once they're inside, we need to be thinking about the content. Back to that slide before about where the content sits across the buyer journey. So in terms of thinking about our content structure, we need to be thinking about certain content. Now, this is actually an interactive thing I can't actually show you, but it's actually a flip book. So instead of having an ebook, which is, again, remove the friction. If we actually have a ebook, I've got to fill in a form. I've got to download the PDF. I've got to then open the PDF when I'm ready to read it. I've got to go through page after page or print it out and read it afterwards. The Flipbook is an interactive version of that. I can get straight into it. I can gate it at the beginning with a name and email, or I can gate it at the end, or I can gate it throughout the information that people are reading. So we flick through. It turns like a normal book. We can also put interactive hot points on there. In the demo, you would see that, but you can click and you can say, oh, that looks nice. I wonder what that is. And you can click it. So the book becomes interactive. Instead of it being a one-way communication, it's now a two-way engagement. And this sort of content is what's really resonating and working well in our marketing playbook at that top of the funnel. That kind of that awareness stage at the beginning before they're ready to engage, when they're gathering information, when they're getting content and really trying to research the solution that they're looking for. When they get to the middle of the funnel, this is the area where we really need to be thinking about, okay, we're at the consideration stage. Again, we want to be thinking about what's engaging, what's a two-way opportunity for us to engage people. So in this case, we're bringing in things like calculators and tools. Chat bots are becoming very effective at this middle of the funnel because I'm ready to spend a bit more time and I actually want to find some answers to my questions. So having an FAQ that's a chatbot works better than scrolling through a series of questions and trying to find the answer I'm looking for. So the idea here is that we really want to make sure that our sleep assessment in this case is very easy to use. We've actually decided to put the gating, if you like, at the beginning, just the first name, last name, and email, again, so we can track the lead score, but also all the information that they put together in this assessment tool that they do, all gets captured into our CRM. So when they finally reach the sales team at the bottom of the funnel, the sales team can bring all of this information up in the CRM and see all the answers that they've said to continue the sales conversation. It also helps us trigger off a bunch of like automated workflows using marketing automation, because if they answer a certain question, could be that they're, say, suffering from diabetes or something, and that's affecting their sleep. We can send them off on an email kind of workflow that educates them about sleep health and diabetes. So again, it's very, very personalized. But the idea is that they fill in this sleep assessment, they go through a series of questions. Once they've completed it, in this case, it's 11 questions. And then the great thing about it is it gives an automated result. Again, it's using something similar like a back-end database or a spreadsheet that's sitting that has all the metrics in there that's pulling back the data. And based on timing and the point structure of their answers, we can tally up in real time how much they've answered in terms of their score, and then based on that, give them an instant result. Are they, in this case, a high risk of potentially having a sleep disorder? Are they mid-risk or are they low risk? And even based on those final answers, we can push them off and direct our leads in a certain direction. If it's a high risk, we want to push them straight through to our sales team. Jump on a call, set up a call, have a chat with these guys and say, look, you've indicated you've got a high risk. Obviously, it's a concern. Let's talk through your options. If they're a mid-risk, they go into more of a high engagement nurture where we're educating them about how they can improve their sleep and how they can protect themselves from becoming a high risk. And if they're a low risk, we want to then put them on a workflow that just educates them about general sleep health. At any point, any one of those could become a high risk. So we want to make sure that we're nurturing them in our sales pipeline, in our marketing pipeline, so that at some stage they can pop up into the high risk area and talk to our sales team. These platforms, I mentioned HubSpot a couple of times. You can do it on HubSpot. You can also use a platform like Typeform. Typeform is like, I don't know, I think it's $30 or $40 a month, and you can create countless assessment tools or calculators or things like that. But these are the things that people want to do. It's more engaging than a traditional download the guide, download the white paper, read it in your own time. It's interactive. And this is where you need to be thinking about in your marketing playbook, how do you make your website more two-way, more engaging, more educational, but so people can actually interact with it. The next one is when we finally get to the bottom of the funnel, we actually want to be able to show people exactly how we can connect with our sales team. Because right now I'm at the bottom of the funnel, so I'm ready to reach out to my sales team. I'm ready to book in a call. I've got some really tight questions I want to ask. I'm one step away from actually making a decision to buy. So this is how your website should flow. Again, we're removing the friction. We've got a standard page to convert people. Then we're booking them in for a one-on-one demo. Straight away, someone can click. They can choose this. This is connected to the calendar of the salesperson. So it's available time showing up only. Once it's booked, it's not available anymore. I can ask a series of questions if I want to keep going. I can have basic information. I can pre-qualify them, and then we can go through. This type of approach from a sales perspective is just working so well. On average, even for our company, I would get 2 to 3 of these a day booked into my calendar. And I can prep for the meeting because they've answered the right questions. I can be prepared when I go in for a 30-minute meeting. And then most of those meetings are qualified people that I'm finding because they've actually taken the time to book into my calendar and answer the questions that I've pre-qualified them before they can actually go into the meeting. So this is something really to look at, a landing page and actually embedding your calendar in so your sales team can actually connect with people straight away. Moving back to our slide deck. So the next thing I just want to show you as well is post-customer is how do we actually continue to carry on with the customer and make sure that they remain in what we call the delight stage of that whole process that you saw before. And this is an example. Again, I'm using ResMed here for a digital transformation. So this is actually created for them. So the first thing that we've done for ResMed is created a knowledge base, right? So a knowledge base is so much more better than going to an FAQ. In essence, it works for your SEO because all the key questions that are going to be asked are actually in this FA or in this kind of section. It's solid with content. People are going there, they're asking a question, they're finding resources. But it's the idea being that it's for people that are already converted, that are coming into doing stuff. So the knowledge base works really well. It also gives you, as you can see on the bottom right there, amazing insights. Who's looking at what content is being consumed more than others. So that tells you so much great insight that your customers and new customers and sometimes even prospects are going in there and they want more of this kind of information. So keep feeding the knowledge base with the content that people actually want. The other aspect as well is just making sure that, if people want to buy from you, they don't want to talk to a salesperson. If you have a product or a service, how can you add e-commerce to what you do? And I've seen a lot of this happen now with even B2B kind of service type businesses. If you've got something you can productize, then put it into an e-commerce solution because people are now so used to buying online, it's become second nature because of COVID and the shops being shut and restrictions. People are now getting used to going through and buying from Amazon and buying online. So how can you actually create maybe an online store? And it's really quite simple for the likes of Shopify or BigCommerce. You can create an e-store and bolt it onto your website in next to no time. But again, tracking detail and making sure that, once a customer buys from you, what is the follow-up service? What does the delight stage look like? Here's a full delight stage that we've mapped out. We call it in this case, the patient delight pathway, where you can see this actually runs, believe it or not, for like 18 months once someone's actually purchased a product from ResMed. And it starts off with a series of emails. And then as they engage, it reminds them that they're, in terms of their products, that how to use it, how to get better use out of it, how to get better sleep. It also tells them when it's time because it's time-based from when they made their purchase. It's a nurture sequence that turns on. It tells them when it's time to come back and buy a new mask or a new filter or something like that. So it's not only delighting the customer by keeping our brand engaged with them, but it's also bringing them back for post-sales and extra sales, which is really useful, I think, for building your business and building that relationship with your customers ongoing. I won't spend too long on this. I know this was covered a little bit before, but obviously working on the content that you need to do. This was mentioned, obviously, using a simple platform like Answer the Public or indeed SEMrush, as you saw earlier on in the previous presentation. But it's super important to write content that people want to read. Like, there's nothing worse than coming up with 5 things that such and such because you've brainstormed it and you think it's a good idea, but nobody's searching for it. Nobody's interested in it. So use Google, use platforms like this to understand, even research your customers, run a poll and find out what is the content they want and write more of the content that they would download or be interested in, or a blog post with a CTA at the end, of call to action, rather than just coming up with random ideas that perhaps won't get read or won't get looked at. You can use if you're struggling with being able to write content, because blogging is still a good way to get good content out. Once you get a good topic, and you can put a blog, really nice longer form blog post and a short term blog post. One of the Australian and also in the UK, I think they have called Copify, where you can actually pay for something like 8 cents a minute, or you can subscribe. It's very cost effective. You actually get Australian or UK based copywriters that will actually take your brief and write the content for you based on your brand and based on the wording that you want. And once you find a good copywriter, you can select them each time. So it's a great way to create that extra resource in your business. If you're struggling, as a lot of clients do, to actually write great content, you can actually use platforms like Copify to actually do the heavy lifting for you. This is actually a little video that comes up, but I'll explain. If you do a lot of video work, I do. I have a regular video series I started just pre to COVID, and it's gone through, called The Couch, and it works. It works really well. But I have such great content on The Couch that it's fine if you want to watch the series and you actually want to sit there and watch a 20-minute video, which is also converted into a podcast. But again, if you're not that type of person and you just want to get to the nitty gritty, the actual information itself, you can take any kind of video that you do, and you can again use platforms like Rev to actually subscribe bring all those words, transcribe those words, for $1 or so a minute. It's very quick, 24 hours or less. You get the whole thing transcribed. And then from there, you can either give it to your Copify friends, or you can take it and create that into a really strong piece of content that you can put out. Depending on how long your ebook, how long your session is, your video or your podcast, you can put it out, to the people and send it out. So Rev is very, very good, using technology to kind of push things forward. So I want to kind of wrap up now. I think I'm getting just on time here. So one of the things that's an active point that we're doing quite a lot of with our clients, and suggest that you do this internally. This is a great way to get your headspace with your team into the new marketing playbook, because everybody's feeling everything. Everybody's got a good idea for what it is to do. So we run these platforms sessions, 90 minutes, called Springboards. This is just a demo. You start with a problem statement, and then everybody goes in and starts putting in ideas for what's working in the business right now. And then they vote on which ones they want to do more of, the challenges in the business right now. And then they vote on the challenges they want to overcome. And then the last part of it is ideation. What could we try? And that list comes down to all the new things you could be doing. And then finally, everything gets put together into, and I'll show you in a second in the next slide, but it gets put together into a matrix of stuff that you're going to work on right now. So running a springboard for like 90 minutes allows you to really just dig deep into the ideas that all your team have, maybe even your customers you might bring together and say, look, let's do a springboard on how we could do more in this kind of post-COVID area. If we just go to the slide deck, I'll just show you. So it kind of looks like this at the end, which is quick wins, as you see in the top right. So what is the high impact, low effort stuff that came out of what we just did? They go into our quick wins. They're the stuff we can do right here, right now, because they're not going to be a very high effort or a high cost, but they're going to be a high impact for our market. Then the other major projects are the ones that are a higher effort and therefore a higher impact still. They form part of the beginning of our marketing playbook. How are we going to start working on those ahead? So you're doing a two-speed approach in this new age. Lower speed is quick, fast wins. Fast speed is quick, fast wins. Doing stuff now, whilst underneath you're building your strategy for post-COVID of your major projects and things that you need to do. So in essence, I think closing up, this is the image that we all face. We're still dealing with this, but we need to change our mindset, and we need to be thinking, well, instead of it looking like this, or even like this, which is kind of looks like an episode out of the Brady Bunch. How do we actually change our mentality and go, well, this is the new normal that we're dealing with, but we can actually change our mindset, and we can say, let's stop playing not to lose and think about actually playing to win like we started the conversation off today. And it's a great opportunity. There is less activity on paid media right now because people have closed back, held back. We're getting some fantastic results for clients and for ourselves on paid media because it's less cluttered. Before COVID, it was so cluttered. So there are huge opportunities for businesses out there right now to play to win with a different kind of marketing playbook. And I think we have 1 minute left, but thank you everyone for having me in for this session and closing off, which I think has been a very successful and interactive Digimark on.